Hello, guys, and welcome to Comic Book Weekly. We are here to talk comics and news. We have a lot of comics to talk about, some news to talk about, and Mike will be here. He's actually here, but he's having some tech issues. So
It's kind of funny because StreamYard, you have a backstage area if you all don't know and haven't used it, so we can see him like down here.
No,
but he's just not up here.
So he's figuring it out. I think we did not talk about the arrangement of what we were going to do first, but I think we're going to do news first because there's not much news. So let's jump into that first. I didn't even organize the doc. There's a lot that Mike actually wants to talk about, and there's only two things that me and you want to talk about. So the one time. But let's talk about DC looking for a new editor, a new Batman editor, because I actually think that's going to take a while for us to talk about. I think we've noticed that Batman has not been as... Oh, we got Mike maybe on. Let's see.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. I don't know what was going on.
The other computer's not working, so I'm on my Chromebook. So I haven't used a Chromebook on this stream in a long time. So we'll see what happens. See if it lasts.
I mean, you look perfectly fine now. If not, I mean, maybe you could use your phone.
Phone's almost dead, so
there you go.
Get that charger. But we'll see. But we were talking about the new Batman editor. They were looking for a new editor, and I was saying that I feel like for a while it felt like the book didn't have a direction. Like, oh, that's so weird because they have Chip Zdarsky and he had such a good start. So I think now you kind of know what's going behind the scenes. There's not an editor for the book, or a real voice for the book right now, or the collection of books. I'm curious to see who they'll hire, and what this means for Batman, what this means for Joker War Tomorrow. Like, will this be cohesive? Will it be a good book? I'm not sure. I have not particularly been loving Batman, but I've also not been hating it. So it's been a weird place for Batman.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm excited for this story that's coming up, but I'm not at the same time because it's been so hit or miss. So I guess it's just one of those things that we'll just, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I just hope that they get a new editor, a good editor on there, and then make Batman, a real solid book again. But it's just one of those things where I just think, I think DC in the past couple years is trying to head in the right direction. So let's hope, they'll do good with Batman, because we don't want it to become like another Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying?
Let's hope not. That is for sure. Brant, any other thoughts on Batman?
I mean, I just, like you both, I want the direction of the book that will actually have a solid direction, be good storytelling and all that stuff. So I think this run hasn't been quite what everyone hoped it would be, I think. And it's had hits and misses, ups and downs. It's never been like bad, but it just hasn't been as good as I had hoped it would be. So, and that could be direction. It could be interruptions, all that stuff. So hopefully they find somebody that just really gets Batman and can take it in a direction that we all like.
Let's move on to this is actually interesting. I'm going to mark it down too. TMNT is actually the TMNT Last Ronin is the only non-manga best-selling graphic novel of 2023, which is crazy. And honestly, I don't think it's just, oh man, comics are dying, like everyone always says.
Right.
Marvel and DC in particular do not release graphic novels very well, especially collections. Marvel, like, I always say this story, but when House of M, when the WandaVision show was out, House of M wasn't in collection. It's like, what? That show was so popular and it's not there. I think they're really bad at making collections and keeping them on the shelves. I'll at least give DC that they have those young adult books that come out and they specifically use it for the graphic novel audience. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So I'm on, and obviously manga is very popular in the book form. So I'm not particularly surprised by this news, but it's still kind of hits you a little.
It's kind of sad to see that this is the only book that, is in the top, because we have comics that come out all year. And at the same time, you do have a bunch of graphic novels that come out, like even in the independent things, and the independent stories, like you always get Image, graphic novels that come out after the first story arc or whatever the case may be. And it's just like, it's one of those things that you would think that they would come out with these phenomenal stories that people would want to read. Does that say that the stories are not good? Like, it's not grabbing anybody's attention. You know, it's like The Last Ronin, when it came out, it was huge, you know? So it's like people still want to collect it even after maybe they already have it. I don't know, man, but it's one of those things where there was a time where just all graphic novels would sell pretty well, but I think it just has to do with manga personally. That's my big thing about it.
I think that, you know, these companies, Marvel, DC, Image, they also need to hire people that are specifically know the book market. And I'm sure maybe they got one or two, but they need a hire that is like a big name to try to push those books and to really understand the importance of selling graphic novels. Because even money wise, they're, you know, we've talked about it all the time. They're important. They're easier to sell, but then B, by unit price compared to your profit. You're making more money off of those graphic novels. So I just think they need somebody there to hire to get the word out, you know?
I will say, like, companies like Image and Boom and stuff, they're better at getting the trades out like soon after the series ends. So they're like, you know, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
And you hear about them, you know, there's, you know, news about them and, you know, announcing, you know, all that stuff. But like with Marvel and DC, I don't, like, if I don't look for it, I don't find it. I think is kind of the thing. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think they really need to know the book market, but at the same time, manga is just so huge, and especially
anime.
I don't know, this generation loves manga, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's a little hard to compete with that when, you know, it's the majority of like graphic novels and stuff is superheroes, and that's what people like, general fans, general readers think of comics. When they think of comics, it's superheroes. And
yeah,
I
think it's wild though. It's like,
yeah,
why is manga has become this phenomenon towards the younger audience? It's like, what did comics do wrong, you know, to
The movies? The gateway
know?
wasn't there. Anime,
Well,
they kind of like sell the manga. A lot of animes don't finish.
Yeah,
So they're like,
that's
oh, read the manga to finish it. So people get into manga. And there's a lot of them watching the mangas. With the MCU, you don't need to read those books. They hardly sell it to you. And DC's trying to do that now, but they almost missed the wave. Also, it's Webtoon. I think people are growing up with Webtoon as well.
Yeah, I think it's also the entry point to manga is probably a little easier, even though like you have manga that's long running, years and years, lots of content. And the difference between that and like a Spider-Man or whatever is you could pick up a manga and you're not really lost. You know, you can kind of jump in and figure out where you're at without having a lot of backstory. Whereas you jump into like a superhero comic and you're like completely lost if you're a brand new reader and you don't know anything about it. So
I think it's just easier to consume.
True.
You know, when you look at, okay, well, what am I going to find in Spider-Man, right? It's like, look at all the different reprintings and graphic novels they have in the retelling of the original issues of Spider-Man, you know? And the way the comics were written back then, for some reason, it's not going to always be appealing to a younger audience because it was a much different time when those original stories were made.
Yeah, manga is definitely younger in that regard. Like, you know, you had your popular 90s and 80s manga, but I don't really know when manga started. I mean, I'm not a professional, you know, historian of manga, but I'm guessing comics lasted a little longer.
I don't know a whole lot about manga either. I don't read a lot of it, and I know some of it's like really deep and a lot of dialogue and all that stuff, but some of it's
not though.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Some of it's just I don't know, it's easier. You flip through it and it's like, okay, I can get into this. You flip through some, you know, mainstream comic books, it's like, oh wow, like it's you know, daunting, I think, like for some people.
It's also like cheap to make. It's not even colored.
I read Berserk. Right.
Yeah.
And so this thing is like, I don't know, 500, almost 600 pages. But I read, like, there's the bookmark right there.
Yeah.
And I read all that in like an hour.
That's crazy.
Because there is not that much like actual reading. It's just a lot of visual storytelling. Like, I mean, like if you can see here, there's
Wow.
there's not much words in it.
Right.
But
There's
the
usually not a lot
artwork-
of panels either.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
less
but
panels.
it's just amazing though. Like there's something about it that's just it's so good. It just really doesn't hold back. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know, but and I'm not saying like it's all like that, but I think it's just easier. I don't know, man. I just think maybe it's easier to consume. I don't know what it is really.
The artist and writer tend to be the same person too. Like a lot of mangas, they tend to be just one creator, which definitely helps the process. Comics, there's like 10 different people making a comic, for sure. It's hard to find a manga that doesn't involve the grown man falling in love with a 12-year-old or a brother and sister having Alabama relationships. There's definitely those as well. But there's some, there's some great manga out there that doesn't fall in that category. But I think that's what people like too, not that side, but people like the absurdity. Like I've done a couple anime conventions because it's just, selling comics, and I've learned like, oh, there's titles like I've dated a slime person and she went to school and they're so long. And it's just like, what was you dated a slime person? What does that mean? But that's like manga, and people like how absurd it is and how funny it is. And then, you have your serious ones like Attack on Titan and stuff like that.
Yeah. So. I don't know. And like, again, I'm not, huge aficionado of manga or anime actually, but like when One Piece came out, the live action one on Netflix, I was like so into that and loved it so much that I started watching the anime. And it's like
maybe because it's just different.
Yeah, it's different, and like you said, Kat, it's absurd. A lot of it is absurd, and it's just that outside the box thinking that you don't get a lot in American comics. So, or at least you didn't used to.
Direct market in particular is just a lot of the same people. I won't even say the same thing. It's just like the 5 same people writing things. So of course you're going to get very similar storytelling because it's just, it's either the same 5 people or their best friends writing the book. So I think that makes it, also not as diverse. And, I think comics have been trying in that regard. We're getting more diverse stories for sure. And it's fun to see. Like, honestly, I miss the boombox stuff, like the heavy vinyls. Like, it's been a while since we've gotten books like that, the Lumberjanes. And I think that was a big mistake that comics are not doing books like that because they're so like Fence. Like they were selling too. Like people love those books. Like, why aren't they in the market again?
Right. Yeah. Cause that's the exactly the kind of thing that you get with manga is you get all those different kinds of genres and cross genres and all that kind of stuff. And I think you see more of that like on Kickstarter and on the indie, scene and stuff like that than you do in the direct market. But yeah, it's exactly that. It's that variety of content, I think, is what's appealing as well.
Because all we get now, even if you look at indies, it's like a reverse of superheroes, like telling their own tales about superheroes or horror. And I love superheroes. I love horror. So for me, I don't I'm still enjoying reading that stuff, or mysteries, but that's like the only genres you get now. It's like those are the 3 genres and that's it. But yeah, that was an interesting discussion. We are going to jump into the next thing. As we're talking about business of comics, let's talk about Ultimate Black Panther, a book that is doing really well because of Ultimate Spider-Man. This is selling out. There's a lot of spec on these books as well. And I really love that there's just focus on something really new and something easy to jump onto. That was the whole point of this in general, is that it's what everyone ever wanted. And hey, you only need to read this issue to get into it. And I think this is really smart, and I hope it goes well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it all stems back to the conversation we just had, right? It's like it's the perfect opportunity for people to jump on board and understand, who this version of Black Panther is. But again, I think it's getting all its popularity because of Ultimate Spider-Man. Like everyone was like, "Oh my God, Ultimate Spider-Man did so well, so now we gotta get the Ultimate Black Panther." So I think this one is more on spec because Spider-Man did so well, not necessarily the story, I would say. I think that's what's going on there. I don't know if this one's going to hold on as much. And I only wound up getting I know this for sure. The main one copy of it. I only got the main
me
cover.
too.
And I did ask my shop if they had any other variants, and they said no, they're all sold out of them already.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
so
Yeah,
I think that's crazy because I know everybody and their mother is going to buy this book to sell it, not to read
Yeah.
it. Where I think the people that bought Spider-Man, most of them were buying it to read it.
I mean,
I'd be
I hope
interested to
people read it.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah.
you would hope, yeah.
Yeah, but I agree.
I'd be interested to see how Ultimate X-Men does, because X-Men has such that like counterculture fan base, you know.
Way out. So you would talk
And
about
Peach
like
Momoko.
anime style, like
No.
that's Peach
Exactly,
Momoko's style is way out there. I want to see is like how that crosses over with the rest of the universe, because that style is so different.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah. Maybe they're wanting to like make them their own things for a while before they like, you know, cross them over, and then it'll change. Who knows?
Right.
That's a smart way to do it. So hopefully they will.
I agree.
Yeah. We have a couple of questions here I want to answer. So let's go with Tevia first. Do you believe the Ultimate Marvel Universe will be the main Marvel Universe? No, that sounds hard. Yeah, that even if they wanted to do that, that sounds complicated. That they go into confusing things. Let's not do that. Other questions here. There's two. So they're, you know, we'll kind of piece them together. But Infamous Mike Manhattan mentions you also have romance, sci-fi, historical fiction, fantasy, and a lot of other stuff. And then Jeff says, what triggered the revival of horror books as of late? It's not a genre I personally follow. So let's answer that first one, which is about sci-fi and all that. Those books exist, obviously. There's a lot of, you know, you got your sagas and stuff like that. But I feel like for every one romance book, there's 10 horror books. That's kind of what I meant by it. It's just like there's a lot of that in comics, which, again, I love. And that kind of goes into the other question from Jeff, what triggered the revival? It's not just in comics, it's also movies, because I say horror always comes when there's a lot going on in the world. It's always like, well, how can we explain all these big weighty things? Well, let's throw a monster into it and like reflect our world within that monster. And I believe that's why horror is doing well. But also movie wise, why it's doing well, it's the only place we're getting original storytelling, which is so weird for a franchise that's do so much with sequels and stuff like that. But you have your barbarians, you have your menus, even Night Swim. Like, I feel like that's why horror is doing so well for movies. But in comics, same thing. You know, I believe that's why it's doing well.
Yeah,
I mean, I think what. Oh, sorry, Brent.
No, I was just gonna basically agree with that, because like with fantasy, it's usually adaptations. With rom-coms, it's usually the same story told in a different lens, you know, stuff like that. So I agree. I think with horror, that is the one genre you can count on being unique storytelling, typically these days, at least.
Yeah, I think people like to be scared. I think.
Well, true.
Yeah. You know, I mean, obviously, because it's like
rush.
It's one of those things where every day we're just in our normal everyday, you know, life, and then it's just like you come across like supernatural or something that, you know, you're not normally in, and people kind of like that. It's different, I feel, you know.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next thing here. We got a new Venom Carnage crossover. I'm not reading either, so I don't have too many opinions on it.
So, I mean, I think this is why the new Carnage book exists right now, is so he can come across and do to fight against Venom. And I think Venom is in need for this, because the whole storyline that's going on with Venom is like all these different types of characters that you see in the Venom book currently is really technically different versions of Eddie Brock's in different like timelines. And it feels like it's been so convoluted and just like all over the place that I think Carnage is needed in that book to cause some chaos. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen there. And the Carnage book, I don't know, Brian, if you're still reading it, but this issue was kind of insane this week.
Yeah, I'm still reading it so far. I don't know if it's quite my thing at this point, but it is.
I can
weird.
totally see that, though.
Yeah, but I don't read Venom, so that's why I didn't mark this one. Honestly, I really want to, you know, invest in the crossover if I'm not like absolutely in love with Carnage either. So
right.
So next up is our last news piece, which is, a news piece you get every month. Rob Liefeld is retiring from drawing Deadpool and quitting Marvel. Yeah, he has said this many times, and he always goes back. So,
I mean, if he quits Deadpool, that's not really a big deal because like people have been drawing Deadpool for like forever, and I think they've at this point created their own voice with Deadpool, and he just originally came up with the concept. So for years he never did the character anyway. But if he doesn't want to do Marvel or if he doesn't want to do Deadpool, hey, good for him, man. I mean, let him do other stuff. I mean, it is what it is at this point. So
I'm gonna keep my thoughts to myself on this one.
all right. Well, we all know Brant's opinion on Deadpool. But let's and Liefeld. But let's go into some Kickstarters. That was actually all the news for this week, believe it or not. So we're gonna jump in. So Brant, do you got your Kickstarter ready?
No, because I restarted my computer. Give me 1 second.
You know what? I'll get my Kickstarter ready. Let's see. I'm also looking to see if there's any comments before I did that. All right, let's jump in. So I do have a new Kickstarter, which is blowing my mind how well we're doing on this campaign. We've been live since Monday, and this is kind of the follow-up to Beast in Snow, which did very well for us. It got over 2,000 backers. And this is in the same universe, the Ever Afterverse. And you don't need to read Beast in Snow to understand this, but if you like things being connected, this is the book for you. This is Alice in Wonderland and Sleeping Beauty, a reimagining of it. Alice is an assassin. We got Sleeping Beauty, who's a queen, and they get stuck in a nightmare version of Wonderland. We have some really cool covers. We have Jason Maurer, or Moore, I think you pronounce his last name. He does By the Horns on Scout Comics, so that's our main cover. Then we have Dervakis, who did our variant cover, which is our thumbnail. And don't worry, you're going to see some names that you know as well. Connor Hughes did this cover. He's done some of the colored Walking Dead variant covers that you guys have been seeing. Then we have Bob Quinn, who actually is the interior artist of Kill Your Darlings. So if you've been enjoying Kill Your Darlings, we have a variant cover from him. And then we have we got some Not Safe for Work covers. And then we have Skylar Patridge, who has done a lot of stuff for Wonder Woman, doing a variant, which is actually our most popular variant. Yeah, and Supergirl. Oh yeah, did the interiors for Supergirl. So if you like DC Comics, you might really like that. I'll send the links in the comments. But yeah, in 2 days we're already funded. The book is guaranteed, and we're really excited about it.
Impressive, good artwork, nice covers there too.
Thank you.
Beautiful covers.
Appreciate that. So I think Brant's going to show his Kickstarter.
Yep. So I got 5 days to go. It actually ends next Monday. So Kickstarter math is weird, but it's this is the new lenticular cover for my series, The Last Ember Hunted, issue number 1. So it's about a teenage girl who becomes a fire goddess. To keep it really short, but this is the cover. It changes from that to that. It's a really cool effect. It looks really nice. I'll show it off in a second. But we have other covers and other books available as well. This is Reforged. This was the prequel to that. Here's some of the interior art by Federico Sabatini. And we do have variant covers available at limited quantities because we don't have a whole lot of them left. We're actually doing a giveaway, announcing that we announced that yesterday, and we're giving it away on Friday to some of our backers. So I'm giving away a metal print, some wooden keychains, and some digital comics. So check that out at embercomic.com/KS, and then I'll show the actual cover because I have it handy.
It's a really cool cover, especially I won't say in person, but on camera. In person on camera.
Yeah. Check that out.
I tell you, man, that lenticular cover was great. I mean, that's like better than any like Marvel or DC one I feel in the past. It like the way it changes is everything's like perfect.
Yeah, it turned out really nicely. I'm really happy with it.
go check out all these Kickstarter guys. Again, you're looking for good comics. This is a great place to be, and we all fulfill, so you'll get your comics. I was telling everybody that we fulfilled 900 packages for Beast and Snow, which was again the one we got 2,000 backers for. In 1 week, we did 900 packages, which is crazy. And thank you. Name Changer says, I like the Cheshire Cat. Yeah, that was one where like, let's make him a tiger. That's kind of fun. Like a tiger looking thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's jump into the comics this week.
Yeah, guys, let's go into these comics. Time to talk about our top 5 and the big comics of the week. And we're going to kick it off with Duke issue 2. I'm curious to see like what Kat thinks about this one, as this one has some characters in here that she's obviously not going to know.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a G.I. Joe fan, you'll know who these characters are. But the overall story I thought was pretty cool. I liked how Duke wound up going to Clutch's place and seeking for help, and you run into Clutch's like girlfriend, and he doesn't even remember her name. And so there was some like great humor in that book. And then I liked seeing how the other Joes were going after Duke, was it Rock and Roll, and then I forgot the other guy.
Stalker.
Yeah, Stalker. And the big thing was Baroness at the end. So I didn't expect that at all. So at that point, like, who is Baroness with? Like, is she aligned with anybody? Is she on her own? So that was like the big cliffhanger. So overall, I liked the book. I thought it was great. There was only one scene that threw me for a loop, because Duke winds up going to Clutch's place. He's talking with the girl and and him. And then the next thing, like next page, you turn him over. He's like, oh my God. He's like hunched over in like pain. And it's like, he didn't show that he was in any desperate need for help in the prior page, So I felt like that was a little bit of it was like a little bit drastic measure. I'm like, wait a second, what happened to him from there and here, But overall, that's me nitpicking. I love this story. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I think the implication was he was trying to hold himself together, and then it just kind of collapsed, but it didn't quite translate. Yeah.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. I thought the way that the characters were introduced was still, fine for new readers. I'll be curious to hear Kat's opinion on that. Even
definitely
though
not fine for new readers.
Yeah. I mean, because it wasn't like, okay, you're supposed to know these characters. They were just these guys coming.
They were there.
I think that was the hard part, is that it's not like, oh, I'm lost. Like, I'm sure, those old Transformers books were like, it's more of like, well, why should I care? It's just like these guys are just fighting. And then there's this random woman at the end. Like, Transformers does a thing where, and I keep talking about it because, again, as a franchise I shouldn't like, but I really do like, and I have no connection to it. It does a thing where it makes me care about these characters. It does take into effect of like, no, maybe this person's never read Transformers. This, I'm like, yeah, I feel like I need to read G.I. Joe to like it. And it makes me probably not want to pick up the next issue, because I want to like these characters. I like the art, but I don't know who Duke is. I still don't really know who he is. He's just a guy who, I guess, fights people. And then I'm like, who's that girl? I'm like, I guess he's teaming up with this guy now.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It was a little bit fan service, because these are the characters in this issue in particular were really classic, like first generation G.I. Joe characters,
original like 85 guys.
And Baroness is like one of the most iconic Cobra agents ever. So and I think visually with when you think of G.I. Joe, especially when you think of Cobra, Baroness is one of the like top 3 that you think of.
Yeah.
So I guess they were probably like banking on just like general mainstream knowledge of her. Mm-hmm. But I get that. I totally understand that. But
it's not a bad book, and I think that's what's hard. It's like, it's not like, oh my God, I'm confused and this is bad. It's just like, oh, this is really not for me. I wish it was. So interesting because we'll talk about Lilo and Stitch in a bit. But you had three pages to explain Lilo and Stitch. Like I don't think most people need an explanation. If you're picking up Lilo and Stitch, you don't need an explanation of what Lilo and Stitch is. But that book took the time to tell us what happened in that movie, and this book never does.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm hoping the GI Joe book will like be a little bit more focused on characters because you're going to have a lot of more characters in that. But yeah, I think part of this was just like kind of getting the fans on board, especially this issue, because we introduced those 3 characters, and then in the GI Joe comics, that base, the pit, is like iconic for the GI Joe base of operations. It's like this hidden base in the Nevada desert underground and all that stuff. So yeah, it's, for me, it was cool because it's like an origin story that we never got. But
yeah,
I
exactly.
I get the disconnect.
Yeah, that's why I mean, I wasn't sure if she was gonna like it, but
yeah,
the only thing I can think of is like, they like do these mini series, and then what happens is it branches out into maybe its own GI Joe series,
right?
Like the Energon, you know, version of it.
And maybe I pick that up because I'll be like, if they do a GI Joe issue 1, I'll give it a shot because it'll be like, oh, maybe they'll do something different, make it new reader friendly. But I
then because then you can have time to flesh out those characters more.
I mean, even Cobra Commander, I didn't love that book, but I do think they explained it a little bit better, or at least you have the Transformers endings. They're like, oh, I get it. They're like the same universe. Cool. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because it's all happening at the same time with Transformers, and it's hard. Like you don't want to compare all these other books to Transformers, you know?
Yeah. Plus Transformers, he has the room to like grow these characters where these miniseries are miniseries. Right. So it's, you gotta fit a whole lot in there. But yeah, I get it though.
All right, so let's move on to the conclusion of Titans Beast World.
This is interesting because I feel like, again, is this the book that's like the best book on shelves? No, but I think it's like it is the best event we've gotten in a long time because it does what an event promises to do. It has really good art. It's character driven. If you're reading Titans, it actually builds towards like, oh, continue to read Titans because there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to happen next. But then it also just doesn't deal with Titans. You have the Amanda Waller stuff where you're like, oh, that's going to be a lot bigger somewhere else in the DC universe. And again, am I the biggest Titans fan where I'm like, oh my God, they did that to Beast Boy, they did that to Raven? No, like that's fine. And it's not killing me, but I like that it was a good event, and it's been so long since we've had a consistent event.
Another thing I like about it too is it feels like classic Titans storytelling. Like this is something that would happen to the Titans in the 80s. It's just that kind of thing. And I didn't see the thing coming with Raven at the end. I thought that was cool. Like you said, it teased a bunch of stuff that's going to spring out of this, not just in Titans, but across the entire DC universe, which is what we want from an event. We want it to change things in the whole universe. We want it to have some kind of impact and not just be, meaningless. So I think this did a good job at that. The art stayed consistently good. I thought the storytelling was solid throughout it. And this issue in particular, I like, you come full circle, but Beast Boy doesn't just come back to life. It's like there's pieces of him missing, and I think they'll explore that going forward. So it's not quite a clean slate here. And then again, the stuff with Raven. So you had, repercussions from this, and I don't know. I thought it was good.
I did too.
This is not going to affect Superman.
I didn't expect it. Like the whole thing with Raven either. I didn't expect that to happen. It kind of surprised me. And I definitely don't agree with this comment.
No, the only thing I see where Tevye might be coming from is that Beast Boy does survive. You're like, oh, that kind of sucks that you didn't have the consequence of that. But I also disagree with this because it's commented with Superman, where it's like, oh, it doesn't affect Superman. But Amanda Waller affects all.
Exactly.
If you put Amanda Waller in anything, she affects the DC universe.
Yeah, not only that, but the whole Hall of Justice thing, that's going to have repercussions through everybody connected to the Justice League in any way, shape, or form, I think.
Yeah, so. I mean, she took over the Hall of Justice, and she's plotting the everyday people against the superheroes. That's the worst thing you could do, and I don't know how you can say there was no repercussions. The thing is yeah, Beast Boy is back, but you don't know in what state, because yeah, he is
Right.
missing a lot of himself, you would think, right?
Yeah.
And then you got Raven, who is not Raven right now. She's evil Raven. She's the other side of her, where you didn't think she lost that battle. You assume that she won, you know?
Yeah.
So that's another situation that's happened, though. So you got really 3 situations. Still got Beast Boy, Amanda Waller, and the other thing. So
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. There's ramifications in my eyes.
Yeah.
And I think it's always like, and this coming from me, where I don't love events, and a lot of times where I'm like, I'm a little negative on events. I'm like, I don't want to read it, blah,
Yeah.
blah. But you always have to come with an open mind to a story. And I think that's the biggest difference with Titans. Like, walk in and like open your mind to it, because I really truly believe, yes, everyone's been burned on previous events, but don't put you being burned from previous events to give your thoughts on this book, because this book does everything you're asking for. It really does give the consequences you're asking for, and everything being connected. So I would just try to open your eyes to it. Just try not to make other events shadow. Good writing, because Tom Taylor, I think, had a really hard thing to do here, making Titans interesting, making it connected to the old Justice League, and obviously the artist doing a wonderful job too. Like, this is hard. That's why people don't like doing events, and events are not the greatest fun, the most fun thing to write. And I think Tom Taylor did a really good job with it.
And it's just, it shows you also too, like, I just read mainly this. You don't need all that other bullshit, all those other tie-in books to make a good event. They should just stop that stuff, and just, if you're going to do an event, just make it one title, and that is it. Let people don't feel like they have to read all that other stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, look at Spider-Man. I think that, we talked about Jackpot, we talked about all those other titles. They're not necessary. And honestly, they bring some of the characters, I don't want to say down, but they're not as strong as they usually are. Like Spider-Woman, I think, could be a stronger book. I know Mike has a different opinion on that. Luke Cage, I think, could be a little stronger. And like, there's the other flip of the coin. Well, you wouldn't get a Luke Cage book if this event wasn't happening. And that's the sucky part, where I'm like, well, I just want a Luke Cage book. I mean, a Luke Cage book.
Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, let's move on now. Let's talk about Dead X-Men issue 1. This book is just dead for me.
No, I did not like it.
This is just, it's another one of those books where it's just like, they go on this mission right from the start, and it's just like they go to all these different times. Like, it just gets so confusing right off the start. They just have to just jump through hoops in order to make this comic book work. And I didn't feel like this team interacted together. Wasn't this the team that was supposed to be X-Men when the gala was announced? Isn't that who these guys were supposed to be?
Yeah. They were the new X-Men team, the ones they voted on. Yeah.
So,
not even Dazzler saved this book for me.
Yeah. I mean, she barely did anything in this book. So, I mean, and I like Jubilee, and I like that she was starting, here and there when we get a little bit from Jubilee, it's fun. But this was just, I don't know. Nobody stood out in this book, unfortunately. So, I don't know. It was just there.
It's such a leftover of everything we've seen from Krakoa in the past. It just feels like, every other book. And that's the thing I don't love about the Krakoa age, is if you do not like Krakoa, you will probably dislike every book that's out there. And that's something I miss about like Marauders. Obviously it went up and down, but that was a book that felt pretty disconnected because it never really had to be on Krakoa. So I enjoyed that book because it's just cool. I can enjoy an X-Men book that's not connected to you having to read every tie-in and everything to understand a panel. There's too much. It's just way too much. But then, there's this flip side where like there's, hardcore X-Men fans that love the mythos. It's never, I like character work. That's always what I enjoyed about the X-Men. So having books like this, I'm like, well, who's dead? I don't remember. I don't read every book.
Plus, if you're not a fan of all the Moira stuff, you'll hate this book.
Oh God, yeah.
Sure, yeah. Which has been overplayed in my opinion. I'm done with Moira.
I wish, like, Kat, I think you would have liked the Iron Man comic, because
I feel like I should have given that more of a shot when it was out.
It's like, it's written by Jerry Duggan as well, and he writes X-Men, so if there is a Fall of X book that's good, it's Iron Man, and it's got Emma in it, and it's so good. It was a story, you can tell his story was going to be connected to X-Men from the very start, right? And it's just very well written. It's something different that you have never expected from, from Tony Stark, and their relationship is really cool in the book, and that's what I like about it,
And Jerry wrote Emma really well. I really liked how Emma Frost was written. We do have a question here from Parker Luck. I know that I'm actually asked this question before. Which part of the main two comic companies do each of you feel you like to say that you understand as to why you love their characters? Okay, I'm trying to understand the question. So which part of the main two comic companies do each of you feel you like to say that you understand as to why you love their characters? So maybe like why you love the universes, like why you enjoy those comic companies, and why
we understand why we love them.
I mean, we all love Spider-Man here, and I think it's because I hate to say he's very relatable, but because that's the easy answer to say. But yeah, I like Peter Parker more than I like Spider-Man. And I love Spider-Man, but I think Peter Parker makes Spider-Man. If he was just Spider-Man, then that's boring to me. And obviously, if he was just Peter Parker, that's boring.
I mean, when the relatable thing comes in the fact that a lot of comic readers are more like, and comic creators too, introverted. You kind of go through some of the same things Parker went through as a teenager and all that stuff. So you just feel like you could be Peter Parker. And I think that's what makes it relatable, and why, and on top of that, it's that desire of his to save the day no matter what, even when he doesn't feel like he's capable of doing it, he just always has to do the right thing. So.
You understand why he's a hero. Sometimes Batman, you kind of question, is like, all right, so you dealt with trauma, you're still doing this. I think with Spider-Man, you understand like why he fights for responsibility so much. Yeah.
I mean, I've always was a Marvel fan from the start because I just felt like whenever I was a kid and I read DC, everything was so like, I wouldn't say it's always dark or depressing, but I would say like a lot of it was very unbelievable. We talk about relatability, right? But when you look at some of the heroes at Marvel and look at some of the heroes at DC, you have like Superman and you have
DC's
Wonder
fantastical.
Woman.
That's the thing. It's more sci-fi heavy, I would say. Like Marvel is more about like, here's an everyday person becoming a hero.
It was also more about like in DC, at least at that time, especially, it was more like, okay, these are godlike beings. These are kind of, it's this utopian kind of thing that we're shooting for. Whereas Marvel was always more like ground level, more, grounded. So I don't know.
We do tend to like Marvel more. If you guys ever knew that, we do like Marvel more as like growing up. But I think we all found our little patches of DC that we've enjoyed. And it's always interesting looking year after year because we always say that. It's like, oh yeah, Marvel had a better year. DC had a better year. Oh, we lost Mike. Probably because of the
I was wondering what was going on there because he wasn't saying anything.
Yeah, I was like, wait, don't you have more to say about Spider-Man?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's probably, it's interesting.
I think with the X-Men, I think it's why everybody, kind of likes that. It's because they're the underdogs and fighting against intolerance and hate. And that's kind of always been their thing. They've kind of mirrored that in the real world. That's why they've appealed to me anyway. So
yeah. And again, I think that's what's fun about comics too, is like just discovering different sides. I grew up loving Spider-Man. That's what got me into comics. Like I watched the Tobey Maguire movies. I'm like, whoa, I want to learn more about him. At least me personally getting comics. I always said that like my dad got me into comics. I read like Superman books and stuff like that, but I wasn't like, oh my God, Superman, read this. But once I read Spider-Man, I really found my own joy for it. But then along the way, you go to the comic book store and you're like, who's Supergirl? I want to find out about her. And then you just read different runs and you just find different characters that you enjoy.
Yeah.
I think Mike is kind of coming on. He's in the background.
He's trying to come back.
Yeah, I think he's coming. But yeah, that's a cool question. I think that was interesting. As we wait for Mike to come on, I think our next one was our number 5. So Brant, if you want to do your number 5.
Mine is actually Spider-Boy, number 3.
Okay.
I haven't loved this series, but I thought this one was a pretty solid issue. Did you read it?
No, I dropped
No, you
Spider-Boy
didn't.
after issue
Okay.
1. Yeah.
Okay. This was a good issue because it brought in this kid Killionaire, and he was like trying to get Taskmaster to steal the super adaptoid so he could have a powerful villain character with all the Avengers powers, and all they could do was save his hand, so they turned him into an action figure, and he fought Spider-Boy, and Spider-Boy like sang his own theme song. It was kind of fun like that, and he tried to get somebody to pay him for saving their cat, and this family that he's living with like talked him down from that, and he battled this toy and kind of set the toy free, and I don't know, it was just fun. There was something about it that just appealed to me. Beforehand I thought it was a little bit goofy, but this one was actually pretty solid. So
I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's an interesting book because I mean, Sledhead just said it's true all ages, good time, and it's just like it is so all ages. And I remember reading the first one. I'm like, this book's not for me, but it's for someone.
Yeah.
But what's so strange about this book is like, is there kids buying it? Like, I mean, you probably should have marketed it a little differently because it's just not. It feels like you're targeting people that normally read, your Wednesday Warriors that just read comics, but then the book is not really written for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a weird pocket that this book is in.
Definitely an interesting little pocket. All right, my number 5 was Local Man, actually, which I was shocked by because I was telling you I wasn't enjoying it as much as I used to, and I still don't love it again. But I think for this week, it was an interesting read because we learned the ex-girlfriend, I guess she has so many roles because she's like the ex-girlfriend of the main character, but then like the wife of the cop character. You learn a little bit more about her there. You get to reveal her villainy a little bit more as well. Like the dad dies, the main character's dad dies. It seems like it's because of her. So there's a little bit more that happens in this issue, but I just don't feel as connected to it as I once did, and that's something I still am figuring out what I want to do in that regard with this book. But I enjoyed enough to keep picking it up, obviously. And it was in my number 5 this week because I was pleasantly surprised by it.
Yeah, I thought it was a good issue, and I like the build up to this point, but not as well. Like I can totally understand where this arc has been kind of just not as good as the first one, but all the build up to this with her and the reveal about all that stuff and him figuring it out and stuff, I thought it was really handled well here. And like you said, his dad having the heart attack or whatever and being her fault, and just like her pulling the strings behind the scenes and being a lot more influential in this whole thing than we even realized in the build up, which I think it's, I don't know, I don't know where it's headed, but I'm still interested, and I think this element, this twist, makes it more interesting and ties it more into the town that he's stuck in, which at first it was like, how many stories are you going to be able to tell about him, having to go back to his hometown and not being able to be a superhero, but they've made it more interesting with her little twist. So
I agree. Don't know if Mike's coming back, but I was checking our Facebook group, but I maybe all his, because I know his phone was about to die, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We'll keep updated.
Now.
Oh, I see. So we'll see. We'll see if he comes back on, but I have a feeling his internet might be out. Batman Offworld. You read that one. I did not.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this book. I didn't think I would, but and I believe I saw a video or something where Mike said this was his pick of the week or something. So
okay. But, he really, he liked that first issue a lot.
Yeah, so I thought this issue was really good too, because in this issue, he had escaped the space station or the spaceship, whatever that he was stuck on, and he had got stranded on this planet. It happened to be the planet of the guy that was like torturing everybody on the ship. So he goes back to the ship to save everybody and take him on, and it ties back into the stuff that happened in Gotham that led him to be on the ship anyway. So it's just it was showing both Batman's ingenuity, his spirit, his strength, his determination to do the right thing and all this stuff. It was all the elements that make Batman a good character here. And there was also like the drama with him and the Tamaranian, because there was like a little romance building there, and he makes a choice that he chooses Gotham over her, basically. So there was a lot of levels to this book, and it's been a pretty good book. So
I'm glad you've been enjoying it. We did hear from Mike. It sounds like all his tech is failing him. I don't know if he's given his top 5 or anything, but I said at least we got for him for half the show and the main conversation, which is definitely was important. We got him for the Titans conversation. But let's get into the next.
I was going to say he's pretty unhappy that he's not able to get to work. I'll just leave it at that.
I can imagine he is not happy. We've all been there with the tech issues. It definitely it happens. He wants you guys to know he is pissed off. I was reading that as well. All right, let's go to. I wanted to hear his thoughts on Moon Man. This is an interesting book. So this is written by Kyle Higgins and Kid Cudi. And it's interesting because it's in the Radiant Black universe, I believe, or at least it's connected to this whole thing he's been doing. And we have, a famous rapper writing a comic, and it's cool to see that he enjoys comics. That's why he wants to do it. But it's a cool story, but I also feel like there's parts of it that's a little forgettable, where I was just like, he's this hero and he has like kind of a cool costume, but there's nothing that really made me like latch onto it, where I was like, oh, that thing that he did, like Radiant Black, when you first read it, it's like, oh, he's a writer. That's kind of cool. Like that's different. And then obviously as the series went on, there was like a lot of twists and turns. Here, I wanted a little bit more twists and turns than we had, but it's really cool to obviously just see a Black-led hero. And, it was a cool looking book. I just don't know if the story really got me as much as I wanted it to.
Yeah, it's funny. I just watched a movie with him in it last night.
I forgot he's an actor too.
Yeah. It was a new Netflix movie. Anybody wants to go check it out. It's got Jenna Ortega in it.
I always like a good Jenna Ortega movie.
Yeah, and it's a horror movie as well. So
I should be what is it called?
I think it's called X. It's
my!
You look it up. I don't want to talk about it on here. It's kind of an adult movie, but this book was interesting because I like Kyle Higgins. But I didn't love this book, and not because it was a bad book. For one, the art was a little bit of a disconnect for me, just because I felt like in the action scenes there wasn't enough movement in them, and it felt very still, and I just didn't get the impact of some of the scenes, unfortunately. And then, I don't think there was enough of either the background or where it's heading. I think there was the whole middle of it was just him and I guess it was his brother having a discussion and talking about everything, which was a fine discussion. It was, the dialogue was strong and all this stuff. And I like character building and focusing on character growth and all that stuff and establishing these characters and everything. But I just didn't feel like there was enough to give me anything about the history of this, except for just this little tease of what happened and then a little tease of what's coming. And there just wasn't enough to grab me. So I don't think I'm going to come back for issue 2, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's sad. I just feel like there are parts of the Radiant Black universe, Massiverse, that I was like, oh man, there's so much promise here, but there feels like there may be too many wheels turning. But the innovation's cool. And I'm still interested to see where the rest goes. All right, let's move on to number 4. So what was your number 4?
Mine was Wolverine number 42. It's the second part of this whole Sabretooth War thing. And this one, Wolverine's just like ticked off because Sabretooth's basically telling them, I'm going to kill all your loved ones here. I'm going to kill everybody. He's only so far apparently killed is it a hero is what he's going by now? Whatever he's going by, Dawkins, formerly Dawkins.
Oh, I didn't even know what he's going by anymore.
Yeah, so he's the only one he's killed so far, but he was like threatening to kill Laura and everybody else that was there. And he's Wolverine, he's got him strung up, and Wolverine's like having to basically cut his hands and feet off to get free and that kind of thing, and just coming after Sabretooth. But there's like a bunch of Sabretooths, so daunting task. But it's horrific, it's gory, it's it's not what I expected, but for some reason I just like it. It feels like there's something for Wolverine to actually fight uphill against here, and it's not just Wolverine's going to save the day. It feels like there's a chance that he might not. So yeah. Oh yeah, Kid Omega got it too. You're right. It was Kid Omega and Doc and that got it.
So we got next. Oh well, my number 4 was Lilo and Stitch issue 1. Surprisingly enough, I had a good time with it. It wasn't what I expected. It is just like the movie. It's a kid book for sure. So it's like Greg Pak just read this kid book. But I like Lilo and Stitch enough to see where this goes. Like I wasn't picking it up because like, oh, it's just Greg Pak and I don't have a fandom towards Lilo and Stitch. I think it has probably out of most Disney properties the most longevity because they had the television show, they had a couple of movies. So I want to see where it goes, but I don't know if this is going to be on my pull list forever because again, it is just kind of an all ages book. But I liked it. I thought it was fun, and I feel like it's interesting to do a different take on the movie without doing the stuff they did for the show.
Yeah, this is my number 6, so just outside. I enjoyed it as well. Lilo and Stitch is popular in this family. So my sister-in-law has like a bunch of Stitch art all over the walls. So and Lisa's a big fan as well. So that was like the main reason. And then Greg Pak writing, I was just curious. And also do you know Moana McAdams? Kat? I don't know if you know her or not.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, she's an editor and consultant on this book. So
no way. That's really cool. I
cool
literally didn't know that.
Yeah, it's and she's got awesome. In the credits as well. Yeah, so that was cool.
She has a lot of like I was just gonna say she does a lot with like Polynesian comics and stuff like that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, she has a podcast where she brings on creators and stuff as well. So she does a lot and she's a Kickstarter creator, does children's books, all kinds of stuff. So so that was cool. That was another reason I was like, oh, I got to get this book. So and but yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it, like you said, it did, it felt like classic Lilo and Stitch, but still managed to do something a little bit different, a little bit unique. And it was a fun story. So
it was just so interesting. Like I said earlier in the conversation that this could be more new reader friendly than Duke. Because like, why does Lilo and Stitch need to be new reader friendly? I was impressed enough. So I want to see where it goes. All right, let's move on to the next set here. So we got World Tree issue 7, which it's so interesting to hear your guys' thoughts because you either really love it or really like, I don't know how to feel about this book. So I'm wondering where you're at now.
I'm still kind of like, I don't know how to feel about this book. I did think this issue was better than last issue. I don't know if you remember our discussion, but Mike and I were both like lost completely.
Yeah, I remember you guys said when it came back, like something happened that was just like, oh, I don't know how to feel about this anymore.
Yeah, so I felt like this issue kind of zeroed in on certain characters, so it was more focused. So it was a little bit easier to follow. I still don't quite remember who everyone is, but at the same time, I just thought it was handled a little bit better here. I still don't know if I like this book or not at this point, though. So I don't know if I'm going to keep continuing on with it or not. But based on this issue, I'll probably get next issue. If I'm completely confused again, I might drop it after that one. But
you guys gave it a big shot.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Batman and Robin Annual. I was actually surprised that Mike didn't pick it up. But you don't have to because it really is just a road trip. So, and also with this book's so weird because it's like, oh yeah, that was fun. It was a road trip, whatever. And then Batman he's an interesting character because he's like, oh, it's really cool that he's trying to be a good father. But I'm like, wait, this is Batman. He always feels like a little out of character.
Yeah, that's true. He is a little out of character. I did like that it was revealed that he knew there was a mission that they had to go on. So that was more Batman-like. But yeah, it's a little weird in this book how slightly off character he is. But it's still fun. It was a fine story. You definitely don't need to pick this up. I didn't love the art, which is odd because I usually like Howard Porter art. But I thought it was a little sketchy. I know you're not a huge fan of
I'm not. Yeah, not a big Howard Porter fan.
So, but yeah, it was a little sketchy in this one, but it was a fine story. It was okay. But yeah, not needed.
Yeah, not if you're trying to save money. That's probably it's seven. Like I got the cardstock version, so it was like $7. So
Mm,
it's like $6,
yeah,
$7. So it's pretty expensive. Um,
right.
all right, let's go to number 3. What was your number 3?
Batman off world. So we already talked
Okay.
about
Mine was Beast World. So we already talked about it as well.
that. Nice.
All right, let's move on to Power Rangers Unlimited, the Morphin Masters. I like this issue a lot. I like the art. I like seeing Kimberly's journey. Because this is the post her killing Lord Draken from the last
Yeah.
issue. And her going to the Morphin Masters. I just think Ryan Parrott gets this character, and I'm really curious to see what tomorrow's, and we'll talk about most anticipated books, but tomorrow's Power Rangers is going to bring, because it's so weird that this book's coming out and this is this alternate universe of Kimberly, and it's a couple issues long, and then we get a whole different alternate universe of Kimberly. So I'm curious the comparability of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I like this issue. I didn't love it, but I do love Ryan Parrott's take on these characters. And I think what I didn't like was that it was just like all about the Morphin Masters, which is kind of odd to say because that's what it's about. But I thought it was funny when you got to them, they're just like eating food that's not there and all that kind of weird stuff, and they've just kind of lost themselves and their whole purpose and all that stuff. But and I did like the what, I don't know what that character is. Is she like an emissary or whatever?
I think so. Like I think she's like an emissary.
Yeah. So I like the turn there where she was like completely devoted and then realized that her faith was misguided and kind of, came to Kimberly's rescue ultimately. So there was some good storytelling here. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I don't know. There was just something that was just not quite, top 5 for me with this one. But
yeah, no, that's understandable.
It was. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was. Let's talk about Avengers Twilight. This is again another one I kind of wish Mike was on too, because he really liked issue 1. And there's something about this book that I cannot get into. Like I like seeing Ms. Marvel as like an older person, so something we haven't seen as often, but I don't really love Captain America, and I don't really think this book gives anything that new. So, and I don't love how dark the artwork is. There's just something about this book that I just can't connect to. I feel like I'm invested in so many alternate universes. I can't be invested in all of them.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I even after reading the first issue, I didn't think you'd stick with it. But after this one, I really get it if you drop it. It's not totally, I don't know how I feel about this one either. It's one of those kind of things. It's like, I think the story is decent enough. If it's like a big week though, do I need this story? Am I invested enough to continue this at this point? I don't know. It's like, this was a smaller week for me. I only had 15 books. So it's like, it's fine. It's okay. But like we talked about with last issue, it's nothing new. We have seen this kind of story before. I don't know. It's just, I was hoping for a little bit more out of this issue, I think, to grab me even more. Because like last issue was like, it was enough to keep me for issue 2, but this one I don't know if it's enough to keep me for issue 3, if that makes sense. So
no, it totally does. It's just like sometimes an issue 1 blows your mind, and you always call it the issue 2 stumbles when it's like, oh, obviously it can't be as good as issue 1, but sometimes an issue 1's just okay, and then issue 2 kind of it's like, wait, actually, this is going in a better direction.
Yeah, exactly. So that, but it seemed to go the other way for me with this one. So I'd be curious to see what Mike thought.
I think he liked it. I for some reason, that's what if you guys know in the comments, if you watched his show, let us know if he liked it.
Yeah.
But I know he really liked that first one, and I'm pretty sure he liked this one. So he'll have to let us know. All right, let's move on to number 2. I'll go just because it's an easy one. It was Power Rangers. I did really like it, and I'm glad Ryan Parrott's back, at least for this mini. What was your number 2?
Duke. So also easy.
Duke. All right. Let's get into, I think Incredible Hulk is our last big book to talk about. This issue, it was a continuation of the Ghost Rider stuff, and I said this in my review on my channel, Comic Uno, whereas like I feel like it ran one issue too many this arc. I was just like, yeah, you probably didn't need this issue. Could probably just went into the next. So it didn't make my top 5 because of that. I thought this was a weaker issue, but that doesn't take away that for me, this is a pretty strong book.
Yeah, gotcha.
All right,
so mine is
your number 1. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't my number 1. That was
that wasn't your number 1. That was just incredible.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Your number 1.
Yeah. No. Sorry.
No, I mean, I was going to ask for your number 1 anyways.
Yeah. Okay. So, Beast World, Titans Beast World. So,
okay.
We already talked about that as well.
Mine is Dark Ride, another book we don't talk about.
I forgot that came out.
Yeah. I really like this book. I just think it's very consistent. I like where the mythology is going. We actually got to see a little bit more of the theme park here. So that's something that I guess is my only little criticism, is that sometimes we don't get to see the theme park mythos, but this we get a little bit more from it. So it's a fun book. I like it. Love Dark Ride. Never disappoints me. So go check it out. That is all our books for the week. It was an interesting week because I don't know if anything blew my mind. There's obviously like the solid, reliable reads like Dark Ride, but there wasn't like the Transformers type book or the whatever else and blows our minds usually.
Right. Yeah. Nothing like that. Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess that brings us to most anticipated. And again, I wish Mike was here because, you know,
he actually has different ones.
Yeah, he does. And I'm still curious about his top 5. I know which books are probably there. Dark Ride is probably there as well, but I don't know.
You have to send us his top 5s. Yeah, because it's like I think if it was half the show, that if he wasn't doing half the books, like, oh no, I like want to know now, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like almost
right, exactly.
Finished.
I just want to know his thoughts too. And I think he was so upset that he just left and didn't even think about it. Yeah, so I'll mention his real quick and then we'll go through ours. So his was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers: The Return. Issue 1, which
I'm
is
shocked.
the one.
I hope it's great.
Yeah, it's the one book that's on all 3 of ours, by the way. So we'll talk about it in a second. Gunslinger Spawn, which neither of us read, but I know he loves, and then Thundercats, which is also on mine. So we'll talk about that as well. But let's talk about Ghost Lore because I don't read that, so that's all you.
It's on my list because it's a consistent read. I don't know. This was a harder week because besides like the Power Ranger obvious one, and I think it was Ultimate Black Panther, there wasn't anything that was really calling for me. So I picked this because I think it's been pretty consistent and I'm looking forward to seeing how it ends. So that is why it's on my list. But I like it. I won't go out of my way and say, if you're not reading Ghost Lore, you're crazy, you know, but it's something that it's just like a reliable, like middle of the road book for me that I enjoy to read.
Sure. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
And I really like the art. I'm a big fan of the basket full of heads, refrigerator full of heads. Like I loved those books. So having that artist back is a big reason why I pick up that book.
Nice. Hey, whatever makes you happy, right?
No,
exactly. I like the first couple of issues of it. It wasn't enough to keep me on board. But,
which I totally understand.
Yeah. So I put Batman on my list just to be different because Ultimate Black Panther was close. Teetering as well. Yeah,
so the reason I didn't pick Batman is just because of the inconsistency of Batman. But that was almost my number 3 because I was just like, oh, I am excited for the Joker War. But I'm like, am I? Or whatever it's called, Joker. I don't even know what it's called.
Yeah, Joker Year 1, I think.
Year 1, there you go. The Joker War was like 3 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm excited for it in that way, but I'm like, oh, have I really been liking Batman?
That's the thing, and I was on the fence with it too, but it was like I was looking for something else, and it was like, oh well, I am curious to see how they're gonna do this Year 1 stuff, so I'll throw that in there, and especially talking about like the direction of the line for Batman and stuff. I'm curious to see where things go, but that's on mine, and then we'll talk about Power Rangers because we kind of teased it. So Amy Jo Johnson, who played the Pink Ranger on Mighty Morphin, is writing this. So that's exciting, and she's writing her own character, which is also exciting. So,
I also was a Kickstarter book, so that was cool. That was went on Kickstarter first, and now the single issues are being released through the direct market, but then they did a graphic novel through the Kickstarter, so it's a really cool way to kind of marriage both platforms. And I am really curious to see what she does because again, this character has actually been really explored these past couple of years because of the comics. I'm just really curious to see what different voice she's going to bring to her.
Yeah. And I actually backed this book. I got
Me
an
too.
email about it today from BackerCast. It's kind of funny. So they're like that's smart, I think too. So it's like, oh, we'll keep it in your minds since it's coming out tomorrow. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm glad Mike's gonna try it too. So
Me too. I hope it really like grabs him because one thing I've always been happy about, Brent, is that you read Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and that's how you got into this. You're like, wait,
yeah,
this is actually really, really good. And then you realize
yeah,
how great Power Rangers is. Because I genuinely think, I always say this, it's the most consistent superhero book on stands. If you like superheroes, read this book, but it's really hard to say read this book because it's so not new reader friendly. So it's just
right.
like, I don't know where you should start, but you should read it because it will never disappoint
Yeah.
you. Like, you do not need to be a Power Rangers fan to like this book. It's just good
No.
superhero storytelling. It's the
Yeah.
best team book on stands. Like it
Yeah.
balances the ensemble really, really well.
It really does. And even when they add more characters to it, somehow it maintains that balance. It's crazy. It's like if you're looking for something to, have a lot of material to read and you're looking to go buy trades and stuff, start with Ryan Parrott's where he started. So yeah.
Yeah, you don't even have to read the Kyle Higgins stuff, I would say. And I mean, do it if you need, but if you don't want to read all of it, like read After Shattered Grid. And I think you could, it's a good jumping on point after that.
Exactly. Yeah. So we kind of talked about Ultimate Black Panther. Did you want to say any more about it? Or
no, I just want to see where the Ultimate Universe goes. That's pretty much it. I also don't read Black Panther very often. So I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to see if I can get into, because I love the movies. I really love the Black Panther movies. So I want to get into it, but I just feel like it's the same thing as like Power Rangers, where it's so lore heavy, where you're like, oh man, I feel lost.
Yeah, exactly. So the last one is Thundercats then, and I'm excited about it. I've never been a huge Thundercats fan, but for some reason I got hopes for this one. So hopefully it'll turn me into a fan.
You both have a lot of hopes for Thundercats, so
yeah. So it's nostalgia, right? So as far as our me and Mike go, so
nostalgia runs the world.
Yeah. World of comics anyway, right?
That's for sure. But I think that is it. Yeah. So we, obviously go check out our Kickstarters if you haven't. I had a link in the chat. Brent has his link as well.
Yeah,
go check it out. We'll be back next week. Hopefully no internet issues, and we'll be stronger than ever.
Next week is our
next week. Yeah.
We didn't mention it. It's our anniversary episode, 10-year anniversary of this YouTube channel. So we're going to do a Q&A. So if you got questions, come with them next week. Ask us. Hopefully, like Kat said, there will be no tech issues and we can all three be on and we don't have to postpone our anniversary episode. So come with questions and who knows what else we'll do. We're just going to have fun talking comics.
Yeah.
We
also are going to talk about like our origin story. Like that's something that's going to be fun. Like if you guys haven't, we have our Tevias and Serenities who have been with us for a long time, but I'm sure there's a lot of you guys that maybe found us yesterday or found us a year or two ago when we only started with Comic Book Weekly. So we were Comic Frontline before that. So we want to talk about, how we met and all that fun stuff and, why we still do this show after all these years. So it'll be a really, really fun show. I'm looking forward to it. I can't believe the reason I can't believe it's next week is this February is just going by so freaking quickly, where I was like, wait, it's already like the week of the 14th. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully you all can join us. It's gonna be a fun time. But that's it.
Yeah,
that's all.
That is it. So follow us, like us, do all that fun jazz, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.